What is up, guys? So today I'm going to take you on a journey all through the 90s, all through up until 2010, where I detoxed from drugs, got clean, got a job, built up everything what you're supposed to get, loads of money in the bank, working 60 hours a week, and relapsed, lost everything, and ended up an alcoholic, drug addict, put loads of weight on. I was massively overweight. And then I detoxed again, lost everything, and then detoxed again. It nearly killed me, which brings me to today. So yeah, I'm just going to tell you what it was like living that lifestyle, I guess, and just show you give you a little bit of understanding on what it's like as smackhead, as people like to say. Now, I got onto heroin back in the 90s. I was big into the rave scene. I've spoke about that before. And somebody pulled some heroin out after a rave. I think it was Uprising. I ended up addicted to heroin within a few months. You know, you don't even realise that you're addicted to it. And we was having it like once a week, and then that turned into every other day. And then one morning woke up like sneezing, stomachache, headache. Like, oh, shit, I need some drugs. And that's how I became addicted. And me, a couple of my mates, Mangum, Kigo, we was living in, where was it now? Wellgate Flats in Conisbrough, which is I think they've been knocked down now. There was rough as a bloody badger down there. And we moved in with a few lasses, and what we used to do is, to get the money, we used to have to go shoplifting. And this is when one of my first like rock bottom moments came. And I look back now, and this is, it's a terrible, horrible place to be in, but that's where I ended up. And what we used to do is, I'm not condoning any behaviour. It's when you're an addict, you need money. So I used to steal. I used to go shoplifting. And what we used to do is, we used to borrow somebody's car. Like give them 20 quid or a few quid to borrow the car. And then we used to go around Doncaster, or not even Doncaster, around the whole of South Yorkshire, just shoplifting. And we would drive around different shops where we'd never been in before, so they didn't know who we were, because in Doncaster everybody knew who we were. So I couldn't really get away with anything in Donny. So we used to go all over South Yorkshire. And what we would do is, we would pull up at a shop. We'd just see a shop, say, all right, well, we'll go in that one. We'll go into the shop. We'd probably get like 20 items each. An item is like a tube of toothpaste, or a shower gel, or a pack of bacon, or a pack of cheese. We would get 20 each, and then just throw them in the boot, and then move on to the next one. And then we'd just hit loads of shops. When the boot's full, we would go home, and we would take him to this woman who used to buy them, and we'd give her like, say, 300 items for 200 quid. So she could make like 50 quid on it or whatever. And that's what we used to do. And I remember once we got pulled, and the police pulled us over, and there was about 300 items all in the boot. And he's lifted the boot up. He says, "Fucking hell," he says, "who's all this like?" I think I admitted to one tube of toothpaste. Mangum said that a packet of bacon were his, and Kigo said that packet of razor blades were his. We didn't know where all the other stuff had come from, so we got locked up, which happened all the time. And I was always getting caught, always getting locked up, caught in this revolving door of crime, capture, prison, detox, crime, just round and round, and I just couldn't get out. And my first rock bottom moment came when we hit, I can't remember if I was with Mangum and Kiga, but I was with someone, and we went into a petrol station in Tickhill, and we've gone in there just like all the other shops, got 20 items roughly, and as I was coming out, they've seen me doing it, so I shouted, "Yeah, stop him, they've come running out of the shop." So I'm running away, and just people just appeared from nowhere. I don't know where they came from. It was like, all of a sudden there was like 20 people in the street. And when you're an addict, so I used to smoke it, so I was well out of shape, under malnourished, really bad condition. And so when you're like that, you've probably got like a 5-10 second burst of energy where you can run, and then you just collapse on the floor exhausted. So I've gone running past the first guy, And then the second guy just rugby tackled me, threw me on the floor, and they all like picked me up. It was, I don't know who they were. It was fucking just, they must have been just residents of the area, and they picked me up, took me back to the petrol station. And this is where, you know, this is the part what haunts me to this day. Then they took me back there, phoned the police and tie wrapped me on the floor. You know, just to try and imagine that I was in a terrible, like, under malnourished, scruffy as out, long hair, scruffy clothes, because you don't care about your appearance, you don't care about anything except the drugs. So yeah, skinny as out, scruffy, tie wrapped on the floor in a shop, waiting for the police, and people are buying petrol and coming in, you know, coming to pay and looking down at me on the floor, tied up. Just, it was a real, just, I was so embarrassed, ashamed. And I just couldn't believe it. I thought, how have I ended up here where I'm tied up on the floor and people are walking past and huffing and puffing, and it's just so embarrassing. And anyway, the police have come, they took me back to the cells, and this is one of the times where I broke down, you know. I've never cried in prison because I was always in prison, you know. It was just another day to me. I've been there a million times and I didn't have no to cry about anyway. But this one time, I was just so frustrated. I'd only just got out of the cells and I was back here again, and I was angry and frustrated, and I just felt, I was just hopeless, you know, hopelessness. And so I checked the door, make sure no one was around, and then I just broke down. You know, I was just at the end of my rope. I was just all out of hope, and I was just so depressed and miserable, and I just couldn't figure out, why can't I get out of this lifestyle? Why? There's all these people in the world, and I'm stuck in this fucking police cell. I'm stuck here in this world of addiction. And I just broke down, started crying, and I actually started praying. And now I don't believe in God. I've never believed in God. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's stupid. But this one time I was in such despair and such hopelessness that I was actually praying to the devil, you know, saying, please, just fucking help me, man, anything. Because I prayed to God a million times and obviously nothing ever happens. So I thought, well, try something different, and pray to the devil and say, look, just please, just take my soul, just get me out of this, I'll do anything you want. And obviously nothing ever happened. And then I had the keys jingling, and that's like snapped me back into reality. So I just got my sense sorted, and off I went, did my time, stuck in the revolving door again, and got to a point where I just burnt through all my bridges, stole off everybody. And you know, when I was shoplifting, I put a lot of people through a lot of like unfortunate situations, because they don't want to come and have to grab me, they don't want to have to come and chase me, I've inconvenienced a lot of people with my behaviour, stealing, you know, and then I have to live with that, knowing that I did all that. The only way I can really justify it is say I've done my time, but I've had a miserable life, and I just hope that balances the scales of karma. And I ended up homeless because I stole off everybody, and I had nowhere to turn, so I just ended up on the streets. And that's what addiction does, it takes away everything, and then when there's nothing left to take, it takes some more. So I ended up homeless, and then it takes your liberty and you end up in prison. And what I used to do was, like in Borby, where I'm from, in Doncaster, depending on where I was at the night time, I used to go into the hospital and sleep in the hospital, because it wasn't like it is now with like 10 billion immigrants coming over here. You can't get a hospital appointment, or back then half of the hospital was empty, so you could just walk in, you could just walk up to the the wards, and I just used to walk in there, and I used to go to the corner, pull the curtain back, and just go to sleep on one of the mattresses in there, which it was good, but you can't really relax, because you know that the police can come at any minute, and if somebody spots you and they know that you're not supposed to be there, they'll just phone the police will come, and then they'll search me, they'll find the drugs, and then I'll get locked up. So you can go there, it's warm, it's cozy, but there's always an underlying feeling that somebody might be coming, somebody might capture you, and then you end up in the cells. And I remember one time I was in the cells and they let me go, and it was snowing and it was raining, and it was like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have nowhere to go, you know, so I'm just walking around the streets, miserable. I didn't have any drugs because I just got out, I was detoxing, and it's such a lonely place, walking around when you've got nowhere to go. People don't realise that when you're homeless, all you want is just somewhere to go, somewhere you can chill, somewhere you can put your feet up, maybe have a cup of tea, watch TV, but you ain't got it because you're homeless. And I ended up one time stopping in a psych ward in Balby. It's been knocked down now, and it was like a loony bin where they put all those with the crash helmets on. That I don't know if it was criminally insane, but it was right next to a school, which is always blows my mind when you think back. And these guys with crash helmets on, they were allowed out to the shop, which was like a 5-minute walk, and they used to sit on the steps just watching all the school kids. And looking back now, I'm thinking, Jesus, that was crazy. You would never do that now. But anyway, yeah, eventually it got abandoned. And I remember walking past it one night, and I just went in, and all the windows had been put through, so I just jumped through one of the windows, and the first thing that hits you is the smell. Oh God, it's such an overpowering, strong smell. It takes your breath, like, whoa. It was like like an old people's home smell, but 100 times worse, and it was really strong and pungent, and that smell was still there, and all the windows had been put through. It had all the metal barred beds. It had go down the corridor, and it would have like the padded rooms, and it was, I could honestly say I was never really scared because it was too cold. I was just happy that I had somewhere to sleep, and to be honest, I didn't really have to worry about anybody. They would have to worry about me, if you know what I mean. Like, if somebody's coming in at night, they'll be like, oh, what if there's some crazy crackhead in there? That was me. I was the crazy crackhead. So, yeah, I was never really that scared. I was just happy to have somewhere to sleep. But, yeah, it's rubbish when you're homeless. It's absolutely crap. And I remember the cold, dark nights with all the windows put through, and I'd be sat there smoking my gear on this metal bed, and you could hear the wind whistling through the windows, and yeah, it's horrible time. And I was just caught up in that crazy world of addiction. I couldn't seem to get out. And then it got to around 2010. You know, I'd spent probably like 10 years in prison, 10 years out, on and off, and that's when I decided it was time to do my detox. I was walking through Balby, and it just started throwing it down at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was soaked in an instant. It was like a tropical storm, and I thought, I've got to get out of the rain, you know. So I just jumped over somebody's back shed, went into the outside toilet. I didn't know what it was because it was pitch black. I just opened the door and crashed on the floor. I was so tired, I just crashed, and then I woke up the next morning. It was an outside toilet. It was disgusting. I was soaking wet, and my face was on the floor, and there was like a slug right next to my face, and I was like, man, this is it. This is rock bottom again. I've had many rock bottoms, and this is another one of them. And that's when I decided, right, it's time to get clean. And that's when the switch flicked, and I went away, and I got onto Subutex, and that's what got me clean the first time. And I stayed clean. I got a job, built everything up, got into a relationship, got everything what you're supposed to get, and then I relapsed hard. I was probably at my worst point I've ever been at. My last time before I got clean, I was massively overweight. I was on Valium, Xanax, pregabalin, gabapentin, sheets and sheets of them every single day. I was smoking crack every day. It was like between 10 20 cans of strong beer. That's probably why I ballooned up in weight. And I was at my worst then. I could barely walk. There's a few local fatties that live around here, and they used to take photos of me struggling and upload it to social media thinking it was funny. But you know what is funny? They're the same fat, horrible dossers that they were back then. And I'm a totally different person now, you know. I'm trying to build something good here. And they was making fun of me and taking photos. I could barely walk. My ankles were all swollen. I was in a terrible state. and I was dying. And that's when I did my last detox, which almost killed me. I felt like I was out of time, so I had to do it cold turkey. And and it was horrible, absolutely horrible. Couldn't sleep for weeks, for months, and I think back now and I think of all the pain, all the misery, but I got through it, persevered, I went through it. And the thing what annoyed me was that I always had this in me to get clean, but I'd convinced myself that I couldn't get clean. I've convinced myself I was too far gone. And set the dog. It's just the dog. Yeah, I'd convinced myself that I was too far gone. That even if I got clean, I was fat as a pig. So I'd still be fat and overweight. I had like 5 different drugs what I had to get off. That's 5 different detoxes, and I did them all at once. So you can imagine how bad it was. It was horrible. And then you've got the mental trauma, the anxiety, the depression that comes back. All these feelings what you've suppressed over the years, they all come back with a vengeance, and it's a daily struggle. It can be a daily struggle, but it can be done. And I'm proof of that because, I'm no one special. And I was in a terrible, terrible state. There's nobody any worse than what I was. I was stealing off anyone I could. I was a laughing stock, really. Just, yeah. People laughing at me, taking photos of me, stealing from shops, stealing anything I could. All the morals, all the self-respect. It all went out the window. I mean, over the years, I've always... even when I was a heroin addict, I at least tried to have some morals, some dignity, There was still things that I wouldn't have done, even in that horrible state. But this time, I probably would have nicked off anyone. I would have stolen off myself if I could have, because that's how bad I was. That's the crack what did that, because it makes you desperate. And I used to wake up in the morning, as soon as my eyes open, I was like, fuck. I just hit with a wave of misery. I thought, I can't do this again, not another day. I was so depressed and so miserable. I used just lay on my bed and I used to cry until my chest was hurting, and I used to daydream about ways that I could end myself without any pain. And I always had this one reoccurring, fantasy, I guess you could say, where I would get a rope, and I don't want to try and depress anyone. This is where I was at. I would get like a sponge rope, tie it around my neck, and then tie it to one of those merry-go-rounds, and then I would just run and then just jump and let it swing me around by my neck, and I would just drift into the next afterlife or whatever, just drift into nothingness. And that gave me a little bit of comfort, thinking, that I could do that if I wanted, if it really got so bad. And it did get so bad, and I did try it. But I even messed that up because I drank the vodka too fast, so I couldn't ping the tablets out. I've got all the morphine tablets out, and I had them, but then I couldn't get the paracetamol out because I was too drunk. I was off my head. I was seeing 3 and 4, and there was pinging on the floor, and I'd go to pick it up and fall on my face. And then the next morning I just woke up, sick everywhere, just tablets pinged all over the place. And there was another rock bottom, and I was like, I fucking can't even do that right, and I was in such tormented state of misery, and I just couldn't see a way out, and I'd given up on myself, I'd given up on life. And then one day I just thought, right, that's it, I've had enough. That's it, I'm dying, I ain't got time to taper down. I'm just going to do it cold turkey. That's it, I'm done. And if it kills me, because you're not supposed to cold turkey from Valium or alcohol, but because you can get seizures, you can die. But I didn't care, I was dying anyway, so I thought, I'm going to go down fighting, and whatever pain, whatever misery, whatever I have to go through, I'm going to go through it, because this is it, I've had enough. And that's what I did. And that was I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago. And that brings us to today, and I make videos on YouTube and talk about it, and it helps me immeasurably, and apparently it helps other people, because I get messages all the time from people saying how it helps them, you know, they've been through a similar thing, and anybody that's struggling, just, you've got to keep going, because look at me, you know, I'd given up, and look at me now, I'm in a much better place. Obviously I'm not where I want to be 100%, but I'm a million miles from where I was. And when I was making the videos, one thing that surprised me is, like, I never in a million years thought that if I make videos on YouTube that people would watch and people would recognize me in the street. You know, it didn't even enter my head. And then one day I was out and someone came up and said, "Oh, we watch you on YouTube." I was like, why? You know, it just didn't compute. And then I went out again, and somebody else came and recognised, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going?" I was like, fucking hell, I kind of had a panic attack, because I just couldn't get my head around it. And now I get recognised quite a lot now. People want to shake me hand. People, happened the other day, a couple of days ago, I was in the town flats, and they said, someone came out and says, "Oh, are you doing a live?" I said, "No, I'm just making a video, mate." And he says, "What's your name?" And I said my name. He says, "Oh, we watch you on YouTube." "Yeah, you're all over YouTube." I was like, fucking hell. So, so the channel's growing all the time. But yeah, that's what brings me to today. So that's my life in 20 minutes. And like I always say, you've got to keep going, keep moving forward, keep trying. You can fail a million times. You've only got to get it right once. And if you feel hopeless, if you feel like giving up, you can't, because I didn't, and look at me now. I'm flying. But anyway, that's the video for today. If you like this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Mange too, YouTube, Mange too.